Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rage, and we are back today with an update here on the free-to-play team releases now in Marvel Strike Force. I've been tracking this every month, but I like making this update every few months just because it gives us a better understanding of the game, in addition to really being aware of, when new characters are getting added to the game. Well, when are the free-to-play events coming so that we can gain access to it, especially if you guys have been following my channel. You'll know that I'm free to play, and obviously me having this understanding, I can help kind of plan around what's going on in the game. Obviously have those resources when those said teams that I want to prioritize are actually getting added and utilized. So for those of you that kind of missed the little background and history on this, this all really started last summer of 2024, where I think the last normal release that we had was actually relating back to you see here with Alpha Flight, right? You can see clearly with their offers getting added. That's usually when their red stars were also initially introduced. Usually it's only a week or two. You can see the average right there, right? Less than 2 weeks. And then is where the next kind of shift happened. Shuri, Black Panther, Hank Pym, they were kind of the last like pseudo mixture of the shift here from the old method now to the new method. So when we average across these two teams anyways, it's around 14 days, 14.4 days, which is roughly 2 weeks in terms of when a character gets actually added into the game versus the free-to-play event being accessible for us to actually get shards of and ultimately the unlock there. They had this announcement shortly afterwards that they're going to change how free-to-play characters are getting released. They added in the slow drip method where, depending on which game mode you're doing for that specific team that they're thriving in, you're going to get a shard or two here and there. And then there's that RNG drop of getting that massive 100 shard. So that's kind of the allure to it anyways, is the fact that, the chance of getting all these little fragments here and there are less often, but there is that kind of statistical chance that you can get a 100 shard drop, which actually, funny enough, that's happened to me twice in a week, actually, for some of the newer characters. So eventually it's going to come back, but it's very, very interesting to analyze for sure. Now we actually have some more information in regards to all the events that have been confirmed and finalized, so we can actually start taking a look at a little bit more data here, right? Annihilators was very interesting. I think this one was definitely an oddity in itself, in the sense that, keep in mind, arena teams aren't often, and usually when arena teams are introduced into the game, they usually have a bit of staying power in terms of 6 months to a year, in terms of what you'll be maximizing, and then plus minus obviously some meta shifts, some new mythic characters getting added. So Gladiator, Gore, Thanos, Endgame, they were all close to a month. You can see they got added in the month of August, and really it was September and early October when essentially all three characters had their own kind of free-to-play event that allowed us to capitalize on more shards. Then we shortly had Orcus, and Orcus was also kind of a mixed bag because it kind of deviated back to the initial method, but I think this is when Marvel Strike Force was still figuring out what exactly they were going to do. You can see Sentinel only came out 2 weeks later, which is very, very consistent with the past patterns we saw. And then Nimrod, for whatever reason, took like a month plus, very similar to Thanos Endgame. And then finally, Omega Sentinel was actually added shortly afterwards as a monthly. So not sure if it was just maybe the timing, the way they planned it. But regardless, the average of these two teams anyways was actually 24 days. So not as crazy as we would think. Remember, the old method was 14.4 and now 24. So you're adding about a week plus, but definitely now you can kind of see that it is overall taking longer to get the free-to-play event. But having said that, we're getting kind of these little shards in between, and I haven't had issues with unlocking characters yet. But mind you, I've been hoarding power cores now as kind of that safety net, so that way we can best prepare for any kind of future events that's for the end game that's unpredictable, and with very little notice. That's how we best prepare. So the next two teams then is Night Stalkers and Astros. So it gets even more interesting is that now it seems like they have pretty much solidified a pretty consistent pattern here. So Night Stalkers, most of them getting introduced in October, and then near the end of October actually, Blade was actually added in, and then Man-Thing was also added into the monthly. So these monthly additions are definitely quicker. They're kind of reducing that average time, which is nice. You can see, Blade and Oath taking close to a month, but Man-Thing only took about 2 weeks. So there's some victories here and there that you can obviously see. Astro then was released And we saw with this one, actually, this surprisingly was a bit lower. They came out quite fast, actually. So we had Ancient One on November, and then she actually got her free-to-play event near the end of the month. And then we also had Emma Frost being in the middle of November, but then earlier December is when it came. And then Shadow King, we don't include Shadow King because he was part of a legendary trial, so he's kind of a non-event there. But yeah, overall average was 22 days, and as compared to Annihilators and Orcus, obviously Annihilator is kind of bumping up that average, but that seems to be the trend, guys. The trend seems to be it's taking about 3 weeks from the inclusion and addition of the character into the game to the eventual free-to-play event that comes. So it's become a nice little indicator that we can use to predict essentially when you get the addition of obviously a new character. For example, Jean Grey was added, a week ago. We have Hercules coming up. So, I mean, you can almost kind of guesstimate when they're relatively going to get introduced into the game in terms of free-to-play if you're not spending power cores or if you're not buying the offers, right? So that really now just leads us with absolute A-Force. And very, very consistent. I'm pleased to see that this data kind of aligns with everything we've seen. Kahori, Miss Marvel, Classic, as well as Medusa, all getting added into the month of December. And at the time of recording this video anyways, they all have actually got their free-to-play method been added. So Kahori was obviously part of a free-to-play event that was near the end of the month, just to kind of wrap up the holiday festivities. We also got some shards of Kahori from the group Miss Christmas, so that was really, really cool. Miss Marvel Classic, as well as Medusa, actually getting batched together in that first week of January because of the monthly event for Medusa, as well as the free-to-play aspect for Miss Marvel Classic. So average of 20 days, guys. So 20 days, 22 days, 24. That seems to be the new norm now. It seems like it's taking an average about 3 weeks since the character addition. So yeah, it's relatively a week longer than what we saw. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, guys. Now we have a lot more data to work with to analyze and understand when these characters are getting added now. And let me know if you're a fan or if you're not a fan. But overall, I like that it's created a more conservative player base in terms of now using our power cores more sparingly and being strategic when you want to use that. For example, out of all these teams, I use power cores to actually unlock the Astro team, which I thought Battle World at the time was going to be very valuable. We'll see when it returns. And then in addition to that, I also did that with Annihilators. And those two were providing me with a lot of value, especially since Arena is generating power cores as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for your time as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.